What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here, and this is The Walking Dead Season 8, Episode 6, The King, the Widow, and Rick. So, as the title of this episode says, there's kind of three different stories going on with a little bit of a fourth and fifth one thrown in. It's kind of strange because each story gets about the same amount of focus, but it doesn't feel rushed. And that's one thing that I think The Walking Dead normally does very well, is they pace their stories fairly well. And it shows, when I'm watching a show like Arrow that has 7 different stories going on in one episode, it feels like they've got to rush all this information out that just does not connect at all. And it feels like you just go through so many story arcs in one episode alone that it just loses focus entirely. Whereas you watch this episode, you've got Rick's story, you've got Michonne, Rosita, Daryl, and Tara, their stories kind of combined. You've got Carol and King Ezekiel, you've got Maggie and Hilltop, and then you've got Carl and this random guy. I mean, that's 5 stories. Each one gets its own specific focus, but each one feels like it actually leads somewhere. And it's not like it's so much information thrown at you. They're fairly simple stories. You got Rick, he tries to bargain with the junkyard people, and they say no, and they lock him in a crate. That's pretty much it. Carol tries to get Ezekiel to be back to what they need, but she can't manage to do that. Maggie's having to deal with what do they do with the prisoners of war that they have, the saviors, and ultimately she decides to build a little cage for them and put Gregory in there as well, which I'm going to talk about that in a second, because yes. You've got Carl trying to help this guy out, and he ends up saving his life. They work together to fight some walkers, and now Carl's taking him back to Alexandria. And then you've got probably the meatiest story out of all of them. You got, like I said, you got Michonne and Rosita, and then you got Daryl and Tara. And those are 2 separate stories in their own right, but at the same time they connect in the end. So you see Michonne and Rosita leaving to go see the sanctuary because they want to see that everything is working okay, that everything's going well. And so they happen upon this warehouse where these 2 saviors, are building a truck that are going to house a bunch of speakers and draw the walkers away from the sanctuary. And then Daryl and Tara, meanwhile, are talking about, killing Dwight after this is all over because, Daryl wants to kill him because he's Daryl and he doesn't like Dwight. And Tara wants to kill him, obviously, because of what he did to Denise. So they ultimately show up at the end. They were heading towards Sanctuary, I guess, as well. I hope they do sort of explain how they ended up at the same place that Michonne and Rosita were, because it did sort of seem like out of nowhere they appeared and they happened to save the day right at the right time. And I don't know. I hope they explain why. Did they follow Rosita and Michonne, or were they heading towards Sanctuary with their own plan, and they happened to hear the music just like Michonne and Rosita did, so they went off and showed up in a big truck and saw the truck leaving, and they're like, all right, we got to intercept it and take it out. But yeah, so their stories converge there, and then they all go to Sanctuary. And I'm not really sure what the plan is. Daryl says we're going to end this now, so I'm not sure if they plan on going in and taking out Negan right now or what. It does seem like kind of a silly plan considering they're trapped by a bunch of walkers, but whatever the case, that's pretty much where it leaves off for their story. So yeah, those are the 5 different stories going on. All of them are progressing different aspects of the story, but it's all connected to one big story. And that's what I think makes this work. In a show like Arrow, where you've got 7 different stories and only like 2 or 3 of them connect to an actual bigger plot, that makes it difficult. That makes it harder to feel the connection between each of the stories. In an episode like this, the connection is there. You see Daryl going off and doing his own thing, trying to end the war in his own way, and Tara's following him. Michonne and Rosita aren't following orders either, and they want to try to go see, make sure everything's okay. You've got Rick trying to bargain to get the help of the junkyard people, but that doesn't work, but ultimately he's trying to do that. Carol knows that King Ezekiel needs to be King Ezekiel again if he's going to lead the kingdom, because they need the kingdom's help. And then, Carl's trying to help this one random guy because he knows that they've got to start helping people like this. If they want to truly bring peace to this world, this apocalypse, they need to start helping people like this. And Maggie, of course, is just trying to figure out what to do with all these saviors. So, talk about, I guess, some of the more interesting elements of certain parts of this episode. First of all, we'll talk about Carl and this random guy. I can't remember his name. I think it was Sadiq or something like that. It was a Middle Eastern sounding name. But they're going through the woods. Apparently, this guy's been setting up walker traps and surviving on his own for quite a while. And so, we saw this guy in like the first or second episode. Carl was trying to help him out, but then Rick scared him away with a gun. So ultimately, Carl has been tracking him and finally found him and is just like, look, I want to help. And so they sort of go through this little bit of a conversation about how this guy is like, my mom thought that killing walkers would release their souls, so that's why I do it. Carl, knowing that his dad would be like, we're not letting this random guy in. You kind of see the two differing sides to it, like you see this guy wants to honor his mom and her memory, while Carl, not necessarily, he doesn't want to disrespect his dad, but at the same time, he sees the flaws in not helping anybody and trying to scare away every random person that come along. So it's kind of interesting to see the two sides of it. Ultimately, at the end of the episode, Carl and this guy go to kill a bunch of walkers. Carl's like, for your mom. And they go to do it, and they get into some trouble. They nearly die in the process, but ultimately they manage to survive because they're not killing off Carl in the middle of the season in some random middle episode. But Carl looks at him and says, we don't necessarily, how do you put it? It's like not necessarily dishonoring your parents, but you've got to lead the way and show the light for your parents. So almost kind of telling this guy, look, I understand what you're trying to do for your mom, but look at where it led us. We nearly got killed because we're trying to do what your mom says, even though she's not here anymore. And so he's kind of like showing this guy that it's their job to show the way for their parents and sort of become the new generation to bring the light in and stuff like that. I don't know. It's, on the one hand, they could take it in an interesting way where we see Carl sort of start to take over for Rick, and Rick realizing he doesn't want to have to do with this anymore, have to live in the apocalypse and try to go out and do all this stuff anymore. Maybe he realizes Carl is starting to become a leader as well, and so he can sort of leave some of that responsibility to him. Or they're just going to take it in like millennials are awesome, let's, power to the new generation type thing. I doubt they'll do that because this has not typically been a preachy show. But yeah, that's one of the two ways they could take it. Next, talk about Carol and King Ezekiel, because ultimately this is probably the weakest story out of all of them, only because it kind of feels like this episode is a bit pointless. Because we know at some point Ezekiel is going to get his motivation back. Like, we know that's going to happen at some point. The question is, when is it going to happen? And I kind of wish they had just gone ahead and let him get his motivation back this episode. I could be wrong. Maybe they're going to throw a twist in there to where he never becomes King Ezekiel again and he dies being a coward through all of this. I would hate it if they did that, to be honest, but I don't know. I just feel like at some point he's going to gain that confidence again, and he's going to decide, what, I need to fake it again. I need to play the part of King Ezekiel. Either that, or he's actually going to become King Ezekiel. It's no longer a character anymore. Now it's reality. But I feel like this episode, the fact that we took most of this episode with Carol just trying to, inspire some confidence into him, it just feels like, do you really need to do this? We know at some point he's probably going to get his confidence back. Why do we need to spend time going, oh, I can't do it. Oh, I can't do it. I can't. It just feels like you're dragging the story along a bit. I would have preferred, not having that at all in this episode. Spending time elsewhere in maybe a different story, and then bringing it up in an episode where it starts off with, I can't, and then by the end of it, he's finally saying, I can. It just feels like that pacing would have been a bit better than what they've done here. Ultimately, it's not bad. I just think it could have been better. So, that's just my personal opinion, but that's just how I feel about the story. There's still some pretty good moments in it, though. You got Carol scaring the crap out of another kid again. The kid is out there fighting walkers with a stick, and then next thing you know, gunshots ring out, and the walkers disappear. And I'm sitting there thinking, what's more terrifying to see or to experience right now? You're out here fighting walkers. All of a sudden, 2 gunshots, and the walkers are both dead. What's more terrifying? Or Carol walking out saying, do you want some cookies? I mean, which one's more terrifying? I think we all know I'd be more scared of Carol coming out with some cookies than I would of Negan's little whistle. That's just me. But yeah, she calls the kid stupid because he's like, I'm not scared. She's like, well, then you're just stupid. So I don't know. I love Carol. She's a great character, and I love it whenever she's scaring kids or telling kids they're stupid because that's what moms do, you know. Um, but yeah, so that's about it for that story. Um, Next, talk about Rick's story because it was pretty short. We pretty much have like three scenes overall. We've got the junkyard people like lining up, and then Rick bringing Rick out of the crate. You've got Rick being brought into the middle and trying to bargain with these people, and Jada's saying no because she's an idiot. And then you got the end of the episode. We see Rick tied up and trapped inside a large crate. So got differing opinions on it. On the one hand, I think it's dumb that we're even spending time here if they're just not going to help at all. It does kind of feel like a waste of time if they're not going to help. So either they're going to take some time to realize, oh, we do need to help, or we're just going to spend all this time of Rick trying to convince them saying no, and then they just wipe them out. So I don't know. I do feel like it's a bit of a waste of time to do this. But on the other hand, I'm not going to lie. I kind of don't want them to help Rick's group out because I want them to die. um, I know that sounds awful, but my God, these people are just it's bad, and even my mom, who is like a huge advocate that this show is like the best show ever, whereas I'm a bit more of a realist. I see the flaws, even though I do think it's a good show. Even she, at the beginning of this episode, was saying what I was saying last year. Why are they talking like this? Why are they still talking like this? Why are they talking like cavemen, even though they've been living in this world for long enough? They've been around before the beginning of the apocalypse, right? So were they just already living in this place talking like cavemen, and then when the apocalypse started they just were defended enough? No. It's a way for them to stand out. It's a quirk that the writers think is funny, but it just doesn't work for me. So honestly, I would not mind at all if Rick goes to them for help, they're like no, and Rick's just like, oh, okay, and then his people come in and just plow him. So yeah, I don't know where this is going. I kind of hope Jadis dies because frankly, she's kind of a bitch. Um, but anyway, move on now to. I guess we'll talk about the Hilltop story next. Like I said, I'm pretty excited to talk about this one because we finally get some. I guess not a lot of smartness, but we do get some smartness in this one. So we see Maggie's trying to decide what to do. Jesus is feeding the prisoners of war like turnips that they weren't using, and of course Maggie's like, "What are you doing? These are our crops. Why are you doing this?" You got Gregory, who's just like, we shouldn't be helping them at all. We should just kill them all. Enid is just kind of standing there for most of the episode. I don't really know what her point in all of this is. I don't even know why she's still around. But yeah, so she's just sort of hanging out. So you got the two sides of it. You've got one side saying we need to be nice to them, we need to help them. We don't necessarily need to let them do whatever they want, but we do need to make sure that at least they're treated well enough. And then you got the other side. It's like, no, they're prisoners of ours. Let's just kill them and be done with it because we can't trust them. So one of the things that just really irked me in the first place was the fact that they let Gregory in, because we all know he's a snake. You can't trust him. He's going to turn on you the minute things get bad for him. There's no point in even bringing him in. I'm like, Maggie, are you serious? Are you stupid? Well, in this episode, we see her talking to Gregory, and they're trying to figure out what to do. And Gregory's just like, you've got me in here, which means you need my advice, right? Because I've been in that chair before. And she's like, no, I'm keeping you in here because I don't trust you, and I need to make sure I keep an eye on you. And then he starts talking about, Jesus and how, he's doing things behind her back and how she can't trust him. It's like, you got a sheep, or you got a wolf in the sheep house. And so ultimately this all leads to, they build like I said, a little prison. It's got barbed wire, it's got a gate. And so they're moving all of the saviors in there. And then Gregory is saying something about like, I don't know, Maggie, if you don't mind me interjecting, I don't think it's right that we let these people inside of our walls. And then she's like, I grew up on a farmhouse, so I know all about wolf and sheep houses. And then these two guys come up and grab Gregory by the arms. I'm just like, yes, thank you. Because if there is anybody in this colony that is a wolf in sheep's clothing, it's it's Gregory. I mean, without a doubt, it's Gregory. So they throw him in there after first he's like fighting back, and then he ends up smacking his head into a pole. So that was awesome to see. And then he's bleeding and he's crying. He's like, and I'm just sitting there laughing. I'm like, oh, this is great. Whoo. So yeah, the fact that finally Gregory gets a little bit of comeuppance is awesome, but I feel like I'm not gonna feel truly satisfied until he just something really, 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 really embarrassing happens to him. You know, like I said, getting killed by one single walker would just be so sweet. But ultimately, a couple other things going on in the hilltop. We see the one guy, the long-haired guy that was taunting Morgan a couple episodes ago. He's playing the antagonist. You know, I'm not really sure what his plan is. It's almost like he wants to die, and I find that very strange. You know, I'm just like, you're trying to get yourself killed. Like, why is that? So I'm not really sure what his end game is, but ultimately there's this other guy who you can tell he's a pretty shady character, and I really hope, you know, I really hope that the tone that he's taking is obvious enough for the main characters, and it's not one of those things where it's just a poor acting choice, and we're supposed to think he's being realistic. But he's talking to Jesus, and he's like, "Yeah, man, I can totally use my hands, and you know, I can help out if you want." And I'm just like, "Yeah, with that tone of voice, I totally believe you. You know, just stick your little forked tongue back in your mouth, and then we'll be good." So yeah, we see the guy that's been taunting everybody. He's got a rock, and he's like cutting his bonds from behind. And so that guy, the one that's trying to like talk his way and, you know, sweet talk his way in, he comes over and knocks it out of his hands. And he's just like, "What? You trying to get us all killed? Not gonna let that happen." He's like, "Just bide your time. We'll take this place in no time." So yeah, I don't really know what this is all supposed to be. I don't know if they're actually thinking that we're supposed to trust this one guy, because I don't. And then this other guy is just clearly, it's like he wants to get shot. Maggie's got a gun to his face and he's taunting her again. I'm just like, dude, why do you want to die? What is the point of all of this? So I do hope that gets a bit more explanation, but finally, the last thing we see is Aaron, you know, brings the baby back and he's talking to Maggie about losing, what was his name? I don't know. I'll remember. I think it was Eric, but I'm not entirely sure. But he's talking to Maggie about it, and I'm just, part of me was just a little bit irked by the fact that he's talking to Maggie about losing his boyfriend. I'm just like, she watched her husband get his head bashed in. I don't think you have you saw him walking away as a walker. You didn't even have to watch him die. The comparison's not really there. You know, like, that is not nearly as emotional as my husband got his brains bashed in by a bat. So yeah, there was just that little part of me that's like, seriously, you're talking to her about this. But ultimately he's leaving for some reason, and Eden is like, "Let me come with you," and he's just like, "We're going to make sure we win this thing." So I don't know, it feels like people are sort of going off script, and this feels like another thing that he's just supposed to head back and talk to Maggie, not do whatever it is he's about to do. And speaking of people going off script, like I said, Michonne and Rosita feel like they want to see the sanctuary, so they are leaving. They hear some sort of like loud opera singing, so they go to a warehouse. Like I said, Xavier's there, putting speakers on the back of a truck to draw the walkers away from the sanctuary to save Negan. And then, you know, Daryl and Tara at the end of the episode show up and make sure the truck doesn't leave. Just a couple things from this. Like I said before, it feels like people are starting to go off script, and Daryl at the end of this episode saying, "We're going to end it all," kind of makes me think that they're going to go after Negan, even though he's in the midst of all these walkers and he's trapped, and there's really no need to. So I don't know what the thought process here. I don't know what exactly they're planning to do, but I'm hoping it's not as dumb as it's making it seem. Which, at the same time, you know, like I said at the beginning of the season, things do have to go wrong. You can't just have everything go completely smoothly, or else this would not be an entertaining show. It would just be, oh, well, there was no intensity in that because I felt like it was all going to work out in the end. So you do have to have some people probably go against the script or have certain things go off a little bit. You know, like Negan making it out of the trailer, probably not part of the plan. You know, Negan, I expect part of the plan was to keep Negan isolated and maybe even kill him because the people there can't operate without him. So the fact that he was able to get out of the trailer means that now there's going to be some sort of plan formulating at the sanctuary because they can all talk and figure things out. So But another, I guess, this is just something I want to bring up because it was probably the coolest scene so far this season. So Michonne and Rosita, they're injured, so they can't really fight like they normally do. Well, they startle these two saviors that are in there making this truck with the speakers, and so they're Michonne's fighting this one woman, and this guy is trying to leave and get something on the comms or trying to get the truck out of there. Well, then all of a sudden Rosita just walks around the corner and she's got a freaking RPG on her shoulder. I'm like, are we about to see something awesome? And the guy just goes, "Come on, baby. We both know you're not going to shoot that." And boom! I'm just like, oh, that was awesome. I'm still not sure which was better, that RPG or Daryl's RPG when he blew up the biker gang at the beginning of season 6. That was fantastic. So yeah, just a little thing thrown in there. It was a pretty awesome scene. I hope we get a few more awesome scenes like that before the end of the season. But that's about it for this episode. Interested to see where most of this is going, but it kind of does feel like that things are starting to go off the rails a little bit. It started off so well at the beginning of the season. Everything was going according to the plan. They're getting things done, and now we've had a few hiccups here and there. Losing a lot of the pretty much all the fighters for the kingdom. Daryl and Tara wanting to do their own thing. Now Aaron, whatever he's about to do. Probably the prisoners of war were not part of the plan. I don't know if convincing Jadis to work with Rick and his group was part of the plan. We now see that he was taking those pictures not to hang them on his wall or anything. He was taking them to show them to the junkyard people. So that way they could see, hey, look, this is what we did. We took down Negan's group. But even then, they're still not convinced. So I don't know if that's all according to plan or what. But yeah, I'm interested to see what's going to happen next. How's this all going to wrap up? At least, how's it going to wrap up before this mid-season finale? Or is it going to? I'm really looking forward to see what we got next. So let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. What were your thoughts on this episode? Let me know. We can talk about it and discuss all that good stuff. Leave a like and subscribe for future Walking Dead reviews. I'll see you guys in the next episode. Peace out.